Welcome to the Collective Genius Podcast, the show for real estate investors who are looking to scale.
Welcome back into the Collective Genius Podcast. I am your host, Leon Barnes. Welcome into another great episode, another great guest, and one of those members that you've heard me talk about in the past, that what we love is bringing people and investors in at the level of which they are at that time, meeting them where they're at to get them to the level that they want to get to. And I'm proud to report and introduce our next member, Mr. John Heisler, who just promoted from our CG Select level up into our Premier level. And he's about to have his first meeting here coming up for Premier, and we're excited for him, and we're excited to have him on the show. Welcome in, please, Mr. John Heisler. Welcome in. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me, Leon. Excited to talk to you. Just CG has meant so much to me personally and my business. So, looking forward to getting into it.
Love hearing that, as always. As you know, man, I get so much, and the reason that this is, the podcast in general, but also a Collective Genius, is I love learning more about how, someone has gone from, in your particular case, W-2 into real estate investing. And then once they get into how a community like ours can continue to help them, it just, it's kind of it's my purpose, quite frankly, in life, is to help people get to where they want to go. And it's very fulfilling. And your story is one that's is unique. I think of someone like Stephanie Betters when I think of you, quite frankly. Both have medical backgrounds. I really, guys, if you are on the, you're a W-2 person, high earner, and you're on that fence about jumping or about to, this is going to be a great interview for you, because John's background is super unique, very similar to one that you've heard on this pod before with Stephanie Betters. Medical background. So let's start there. You currently are doing real estate, single family, commercial. You've grown. We'll get to that. I want to know more about how you got into this, because, man, you were in ICU. You were helping save lives. Tell us. You went to school to be in medical. Is that what you wanted to do?
Yeah. So actually, when I was undergrad, I was pretty clueless, didn't know what I wanted to do. First kind of picked a degree, ended up doing exercise science kinesiology. So totally different degree than most people in real estate.
Yeah.
And then I didn't know what to do with that from there. Heard about being a physician assistant, which is the degree that I got. I went and got a master's in medical science. And one of my first rotations was in the ICU and critical care. And I just fell in love with the medicine that mattered, and dealing with sick people and getting to save some and watching some unfortunately die, and just being involved in the whole process. I loved it. And I did that over a decade. Wow. I don't regret a single minute of it. It made me into the person I am today, and gave me that grit and determination that kind of carried over into real estate. So I never thought I'd be on a real estate podcast like this. Never thought I'd be buying commercial buildings and doing all the stuff that I've done. I thought I'd be in medicine my whole career, but it's one of those things. I worked ICUs 24/7. I was on a model where I was mostly day shift. I worked about 30% nights though, so it was 3 or 4 nights a month. I worked a major and minor holiday every single year. And, I made pretty good money, more money than the average American makes. And I loved being in the ICU. I loved what we did. I was super involved in the group too. Loved my group, great group of people that I worked with. We built and grew programs inside of there. We actually called ourselves intrapreneurs before I ever thought about being an entrepreneur, and built a residency program, had a medical podcast you could go look up from back in the day, and all these different things that we built. And at some point, I just realized, financially, I was getting a, couple percent raise a year, and it didn't really have the impact on my family and my life that I wanted to. And I didn't see a way out of that kind of schedule at that time. And my kids were toddlers at the time. I was working my main job. I was picking up extra shifts. I was an adjunct professor teaching PAs, and so just working a lot. And I was always really into personal finance and listened to those kinds of podcasts, and inevitably stumbled upon the kind of bigger pocket style world of, hey, buy a couple single family rentals and your life will change and you can work less and you can get this passive income. So I kind of got into that world, read every book I could find. And this was in probably 16 and 17. And then 2018 went out and bought a duplex. We thought the market was hot at that time. It took me probably half a year to find a decent duplex. And then I was like, oh, sweet, my life has changed. But what I'm going to say next is it didn't. And that couple $100 of cash flow that I got every month did not include any repairs and maintenance. And every single year, something, pretty decent size broke and took away all that cash flow. And so I was like, I got to find a way to do this faster. And so I really kind of accidentally stumbled into wholesaling. I didn't even know it was wholesaling at the time. I just found some other podcasts that were like, hey, go send out direct mail and go talk to sellers directly and maybe you can get a better deal. And so started sending out postcards. And I didn't even know the word wholesale when I first sent out the first batch. But then quickly realized if on my salary, if I was going to spend a couple $1,000s a month, and we got to the point I was spending about $5,000 a month, which was big for me as a W-2 earner at that time. I was like, man, I can't keep all of these myself. I've got to do something. So then I figured out what wholesaling was after I'd already started sending out letters and postcards, and then kind of found the business world behind all this and kind of fell in love all over again with that, the numbers and the KPIs and how to build this and how I could grow it and be an entrepreneur. And just kind of, that didn't happen overnight. That was a kind of multi-year period, and commercial fell in there in the middle. We'll talk about that.
Sure.
But just kind of slowly over time, my identity shifted from medical ICU guy, it was probably 3 or 4 year period, over towards real estate guy who was, doing medicine. At that point, it was time to let it go. And I probably held on longer than I should. They call a decent paying salary like that, the golden handcuffs. And I definitely felt that fear of letting go of that consistency every 2 weeks. But I'm super glad that I finally did.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. First and foremost, I'm glad you held on. If you've listened to me on this show, those that have listened to me, you know that I have always, Casey Gregerson and I had this conversation. It's like, hold on for as long as you possibly can, and almost to a point where you're no longer giving the energy that you need at the other place and they're ready to fire you, because you're just not doing the job. Now, in your particular case, you really couldn't do that as much because you're talking about human lives in your medical field. Obviously, for some, it's not as, life or death, obviously. So that's not, an option. It wasn't an option for you. So you continued to do both. I mean, you're burning candles, obviously, at both ends. Let's go back to that first direct mail. You said going direct to seller. Well, how are you going direct to seller when you're working? Well, I guess you're different shifts, right? So you must have worked the third shift and answered the phone during, regular normal business hours, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, I was doing both of them essentially full time, 40 hours ish a week each. And I just scheduled I went in person to all the appointments myself. I answered the phone myself, and just scheduled around my shifts, and would go on my off days, or if I had a night shift, I'd go in the afternoon and go check it out and go drive to work and make it happen.
Man, I love this country. Tell me another country where, I'm sure there are, but tell me another country where you can do that, right?
I know. It's amazing.
Not direct mail. You're a physician's assistant working in life or death situations, and you're answering the phone or you're scheduling appointments, and you could have easily said, man, I am exhausted. I am going home and I'm going right to sleep. Instead, you're like, you know what? I see a better life for my family. Name me another country where you can do that. It is fun.
I know.
Phenomenal. Good for you.
Thanks. Yeah. It was definitely busy, but the whole thing was rewarding. I would absolutely do it again for sure.
Yes, you would, because you wouldn't be here right now talking to me.
You're right.
So
absolutely.
You are sending out direct mail. You are putting contracts, getting contracts. So this is what 2016 you mentioned.
So that
Oh, it's
was when I started getting
so this is
into
18.
yeah.
This is 18.
So yeah, probably 18, 19. Yeah.
When do you start to look at now? And we may have buried this and may not have even brought it up, but you're in Atlanta Metro, and in 2020, actually about 2019, Atlanta Metro becomes this hotbed for, and you and I have had this conversation before. We must have had 30 members in our select and elevate communities at one point because it was like a gold rush. Atlanta, Charlotte, Phoenix, Raleigh, there were a couple of markets where people were just finding homes, selling homes without even any negotiation on either side because of institutions. I'm guessing you felt some of that as well when you started out on the single family side.
Yeah, it was one of those things, man. I wish I was so new I didn't realize it was a gold rush. We were doing like that first. And to that point, I sent 700 postcards out the door, crappy, generic, find online, easy postcards to an area of Atlanta that I really identified would be a good spot to keep rentals. It wasn't even, like I said, too wholesale, and got a huge response from a tiny mail set, bought 2 houses and ended up wholetailing them. Didn't even know wholetailing was a term back then, but bought 2 really, really cheap houses, and my first commercial call came off of that postcard set too. So I am extremely thankful that I sent that out.
Fruitful.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of people listening to this right now going, I haven't ever had that.
Yeah. About the third guy who called in and said, "Hey, you mailed my house. I'm not selling my house, but I have an industrial warehouse for sale. Would you buy that?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" I mean, and I'm literally, I barely know what the world wholesale is at this time that I'm having this conversation with this dude. And same thing, I can't remember where I was in the shift cycle, but I had time and hopped in the car like maybe 2 hours later, drove down there to meet him, downloaded a commercial Audible book to listen on the way there, and he walks me through the warehouse, and he's showing me the 3-phase electric and the lifts and everything, and I'm just nodding because I have no idea what any of it is at that time. And at the end of it, I'm like, "Well, how much do you want for it?" And he's like, $500,000, and that sounded like a good deal, but I had no idea. I still had like an online template contract at this point that I had brought with me on paper, and so we signed it right there on the car. And I was like, "All right, I got to find somebody who knows something about commercial to tell me if this is a deal or not." And so I ended up not buying that. We went all the way to the end, and he ended up evicting. We got a bank loan ready to go on it. He evicted his tenant. But that was the vehicle, the jump point for me to get into commercial. And in trying to figure out if that was a deal, I met multiple people locally who were in commercial that are my friends to this day, and did deals together with them. And ultimately, about 3-4 months later, bought 2 office buildings. That was right when COVID was hitting, at the beginning of COVID. So
what year did you leave the medical profession and go full time as a real estate investor?
2023. So
okay,
not that long ago. Yeah.
Not long ago at all. Mm-hmm. This first commercial building that you bought, what year was that?
2020.
So you're buying 3 years before you go full time. You're not only buying single family, you're putting under contract one that you don't end up closing on, but you then end up buying multiple buildings before you go full time in this.
Yep. I think when I quit medicine for good, I had 3 or 4 commercial buildings at that point and a full-fledged residential team.
Oh, what got you over the hump to go full time?
It was finally it was one of the things I knew I should make the decision for a while. I actually distinctly remember making the decision on vacation of all places. That's when our best ideas come to us. Mm-hmm. I was floating in the ocean by myself, just thinking. I don't remember, the kids were making sandcastles or something, and I'm just thinking big thoughts to myself. And I was like, you know what? When I get back, I'm going to do it, and finally did it. So
there's 2 places that great ideas come to me. One is vacation, where you actually have some quiet time sitting in your own thoughts. And sometimes it's in the water, sometimes it's on a hammock, sometimes it's just sitting by the pool or whatever. And I don't do this as much anymore just due to injuries. And I really think I should go back to it just because of how therapeutic it is. Running, like just
Yep.
running or walking, you can do that as well. That clear, even if you're listening to something, it's just that clarity. There are times where I'm on a run or on a walk where whatever's in my, in my ears at that given time, I'll have to rewind it 30 minutes because I have no clue what was just said because I was in my own thoughts. And I had to stop it, go to my notes, write down my thoughts of what I just had, and go back to whatever I was listening to, Audible, what have you. I encourage those that are listening to this, if you don't have that quiet time, that you time, in this particular case on vacation, or whether it's a morning walk, morning run, what have you, it's something that I would encourage you to add. So you make this decision. What I love about your model from day one, from your application when you applied here, was, hey, I've got a multi-layered business here. I am utilizing wholesaling to fund this long-term wealth strategy. And it's very rare, John, when people are only full-time in the business for a few years, it's very rare that they understand that calculation. Generally, I'm so sick of the single-family model, the people backing out of contracts, and and to which I always respond, what's the alternative?
Right.
You go to multifamily and people back out of contracts there as well. Or there's always going to be trials and tribulations in anything that you're growing that is hard. But you knew that model early on. Is that something that you learn from your own business, or is that something that you listen to others that, hey, I probably need this active income stream in order to build long-term wealth?
That's a good question. And I stumbled into it accidentally, but then I, through CG and others, figured out that was a model I should be running. And so what you're describing, I now kind of consider the barbell method, and it's the biggest thing that I recommend to people. I'm very biased, obviously, but I think everyone should be buying a commercial building a year is one of my sayings. But one of the things I always say is don't quit doing whatever is making you active income. And I know CG is really big on this, and it's so important. These commercial buildings have long cash conversion cycles. You can't buy one and make money a couple months later, unless you wholesale it or get an acquisition fee. In general, the big dollars are coming several years down the road. And if you've got time to do it. But, don't neglect your main thing. And it was funny. One of the stories I wanted to tell on here that will stick with me, I think, for the rest of my life is my very first CG was October 2022. And I remember flying in that Sunday night. And this is, like you said, Atlanta's hot. The market's hot everywhere. We think we're good. We're making good money wholesaling. We've already balanced out. And I'm still working full-time W-2 at that time, by the way. And then we're doing fix and flips, and we're buying luxury Airbnbs with capital partners. I own 3 commercial buildings by the time I go to CG. And there's probably 2 or 3 other things we were dabbling in that we shouldn't have been doing. And we fly into that first meeting, and I remember we're sitting at a table that Sunday night, haven't even started the actual conference yet, and everyone's introducing themselves and getting to know people. And Gary Harper comes up, and everybody at the table, except for me, for the most part, knew who he was, and I could tell he was a big deal. And he came up, and or I thought he still is, and he came and took the time to speak to every single one of us at the table, and he basically went round robin and said, who are you and what do you do? And he would listen and then give us some advice. And so I'm getting nervous. I'm like, what am I going to tell Gary that I do? Because we were doing like 5 things at that point. And finally comes to me, one of the last people, and I stammer something out about our wholesale and fix and flip and working in the hospital and commercial. And he listens patiently, and he goes, "You are unfocused," is the very first thing to me he said. And I remember just stewing on that the whole first meeting. I was like, Gary does not approve of my business model. and I at first set out to prove him wrong, because that's just the style of person that I am. But as I went through that CG and got the CG slap, as Jimmy affectionately calls it, I realized, man, we didn't have anything. We didn't have an org chart. We didn't have standard operating procedures anywhere. And all this time just a couple weeks before that meeting, I had spent an entire week at one of the Airbnbs, like setting up furniture. Like, why am I setting up furniture? And just learned so much about. I was nowhere near the leader to be capable of running 5 different verticals or businesses at that point in my career. And it didn't happen overnight. I mean, it honestly didn't fully happen until this past year that I had the strength as an entrepreneur to focus on one thing and focus on it well. So yeah, that's it. That's been, I think, the biggest thing that I've gotten from CG. And it's taken a long time for it to saying no stuff's hard.
It is. It is, because when you send out a direct mail piece for $5,000 and you're still working full time with a W-2, and you get someone that says, "Hey, you want to buy my commercial building?" You go and put it under contract on your first run, plus buy 2 other houses. You're like, "This is easy."
Yeah, exactly.
I can do this for forever. And that's, everything that happened in 2019, 2020, and 2021. Hopefully everyone took full advantage of it. But I remember saying it from stage every single meeting, guys, this is not real. Like this, take advantage of it, but also understand that it's like playing, you're a 9th grader and you're playing against 7th graders. You are the star, not because you are the best person. You just have so much more muscle and speed, and you're bigger and you're stronger and you're faster, and it's going to flip. Like the market is going to be the senior and you're going to be the freshman here real quick when it comes to, athletics. Same thing goes in the market. It's going to flip flop. And those that listened and took heed are still doing this at a high level and growing. Those that did not got a kick in the mouth, not a slap. They got a kick in the mouth. And that's part of this industry. And hopefully most people understand that you got to make hay when the sun is shining, because there are going to be some markets that give you a ton. And there's others that if you do this right, especially as you evolve, and we're going to talk about your evolution here on the commercial side, as you evolve, I know some people at the premier level that just said, you know what, April 22 through the end of the year, I'm going to sit back on the sidelines a little bit and stack cash, see if there's some opportunities I can fully take advantage of here. But my model, as I knew it, has changed. But I'm in such good shape that I have the ability to take full advantage of what the market gives me, and that's the place in which I hope everyone would want to be in. And understanding that active income is the greatest, fastest path to long-term wealth building strategy. It's just the bottom line. But unfortunately, a lot of people see these shiny objects in this industry, especially. You didn't see necessarily shiny objects. You just said, if it's a deal, I'm going to take it and I'll figure it out, because obviously you're a smart individual and you know how to go and find the resources. So you get this lead for this commercial building. And I want to really focus in on this, John, because you've done this right. There are a lot of people that have done it that haven't, been able to successfully make this jump from primarily single family to now primarily commercial. You've done it right. So you had leads that helped, obviously. In making this transition, though, how did you learn? Because there's only a handful of people that are teaching this. How did you make that transition? Because you're not doing traditional multifamily as a whole. You're doing some of it, but most of yours is commercial, retail type space, industrial. How do you make that transition successfully?
Yeah, I think one of the things that probably evident from my story that has always been a strength and a weakness is that I'm not afraid to go do something and make a ton of mistakes and figure it out. And like I said, I am reasonably smart, but not afraid to go fail forward, if you will, and go try something. And that has bitten me several times, but it's obviously paid off many times as well. But yeah. I call them business tenants. We really, really like industrial, retail, and office a little bit better than multifamily storage. I own every single one of those kinds of asset classes, and part of that is learning your strengths and weaknesses. So, like you said, I identify as a deal junkie. Like I love looking at deals. If I would resist it, but if someone texted me a good deal right now, I would be very tempted to go look at it and underwrite it right this second. But that's just And so I've built my whole business, I think, now around my strengths, but that took me 5+ years to figure out what that was. And those buildings are just so much easier to handle from an operational standpoint. You can get a leasing agent, lease them up yourself, whatever you need to do. Once they're leased up, they're on 3-5 year leases, and they're, especially if they're triple net, there's just not a whole lot left for you to do. And I've morphed my team. I've got an asset manager now who she's first line of making sure those buildings are performing and alerting me when they're not. And so it allows me to work on my strength, which is look at more deals, find more deals, and figure out how to take them down and get them in the portfolio. But yeah.
So the hardest part of all of this is not necessarily getting the deals. We understand at a high level how to get direct to seller, regardless of asset class. But the hardest part is the underwriting. That's different than single family. How'd you figure that one out?
Yeah. Do trial and error. I mean, it's funny. I look back at my first pro forma that I built on my first building, and it was wildly off. But that building still made us almost $4 million profit. That was for a lot of reasons. We bought it at an insanely good price. So all the mantras from single family still hold true in commercial, just with a little twist. So buying right matters more than anything else. Operating I consider each building its own mini business. Operating your business with efficiency and excellence is going to make it worth more money. It's probably why I love commercial so much. If you can increase your income, you can double the value of your building, especially on these smaller commercial deals. So yeah.
What does the business look like today? Obviously, you figured out underwriting over time, some trial and error. It sounds like you've had a lot of resources that I don't want to bury this. I want to make sure that we don't just gloss over the fact that you said many a times that you made great contacts in your market with commercial people that helped you walk you through some of these things. So I don't want to bury that. That wasn't something that you just did trial and error. You made it. You found the resources that were available to you, and you built relationships. So don't want to gloss over that. But the business itself has evolved. Are you're as diversified as anybody that I know within the Collective Genius. Are you still doing single family? What does your holdings look like? Are you still doing transactional type of real estate? What does it look like today?
Yeah, so I've only bought one house in the past year, and it was for my storage manager to lease from me. So
I almost clapped for you because it's almost like a AA meeting where you're like, yeah, I only did one. So
I only made one mistake.
I'm giving it up, but I had that one day. All right, so we transitioned out of single family. I've actually. We did a pod with Saul Z in Chicago that only does industrial, but he's like, you know what? If you bring me a single family deal that makes sense, I'm still going to do it. Just like you, if you bring me something, I'll look at it. But for the most part, out of single family, that just happened kind of last year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. I had both at the height of the 2024 was probably the height of where I had both of them at the same time. I had left the hospital. I had about an 18-person residential team. We were primarily virtual. We probably ended up doing about 60, 75 transactions, mostly innovation that year. Did a couple fix and flips, which was never our strength. And that year we bought 2 commercial buildings. So that was kind of where I thought the trajectory was going before. And I had a similar kind of moment and thought, very similar to when I left the hospital. It didn't hurt that I got to cash a big check from our first deal going full cycle on one of those commercial buildings. But I was finally at a point where I had pretty good, reliable residual income coming in from the commercial buildings, and I was getting a big check, and I could kind of plot out. I was like, okay, I can just sell one of these buildings once a year if I truly needed the cash flow. And then it suddenly was at a point where the longer cash conversion cycle was something that I could handle. And I was looking at the opportunity on the commercial side and saying, if I go from buying 2 of these a year to 4, 6, 8, then I modeled out what that math would look like. And that just makes to me a lot more sense and plays to the strengths that I have a lot better. And I was on the residential side, we had kind of grown the team I actually think that's kind of a tricky point for a lot of businesses around that number of team members, especially the style that we did. We had A players in several seats, definitely sales and dispo, which you got to have when you get to that level. But I think one of our mistakes is I never really built in director level people at every level, or had an elite operations person. And so I just felt like I was the director over everything, and in 30 hours of Zooms a week to kind of try to manage all the chaos. And we had SOPs, and we had an operating system and KPIs, and we were at a decent level, but I felt like I had to hold it there the whole time myself. And if I had continued that business, the next step for me would have been to quit being scared of hiring people that are elite and make more money, and install some directors over that. But just felt like this was a better path for me.
Well, there's a couple things that I want to pull out of that. The first thing is that, you made the transition once it was possible. Like, you didn't just say, I'm done with single family, I'm jumping over here to commercial only. You made some valid points of, I now have enough cash flow to get me through. And if I have to, which you probably won't, but if I have to, I know I can sell a building a year. And now I'm increasing at least by 1 or 2 a year additional commercial properties that will allow me to look at this side of the business and say, this is not my biggest strength nor my biggest passion. But you
Right.
can't just eliminate it. And that's the point I wanted to get across. I had some individuals that I talked to this week from Collective Genius, and it was, we're spinning our wheels with single family. We don't feel like we're growing at the level that we want as business owners. I said, well, what is the alternative? What do you want to do? What is sexier to you? Is there something in this space that's sexier to you? And a lot of times the answer is, bigger things, right? It's very hard unless you're independently wealthy. You've raised a bunch of capital. And even in that particular case, it's not, I wouldn't suggest just doing that. Unless you're independently wealthy, to make that jump, it's really hard unless you have sold one of those buildings to offset a couple of years of revenue. So you have that active income without the source of single family. So the biggest two things I wanted to take away: you made the transition only when you were able to and ready. And the second thing, you played to your strengths. You said that at least 2 or 3 times now.
Yeah.
But you didn't get to do that right out of the gates. You had to earn that rite of passage to get there, because you knew what the formula was to get to that point.
Yep. And it was one of those things, I think you and I talked about this when I was jumping up to Premier. I kind of was just one of those people that I had to dabble and try a little bit of every type of real estate to figure out what made the most sense for me. And in the process of doing those things and seeing the good and the bad, I figured out truly what my strengths and weaknesses were and could apply the right kind of real estate to it. So
Love that.
yeah, that was definitely a journey.
So how many total commercial buildings now?
Probably 15 or so, somewhere around there.
Wow. It's grown significantly. And that includes multifamily, commercial, retail, industrial.
Yep. And a little bit of storage. So yeah, a little bit of everything. Like I said, I'm a deal junkie. I'll buy almost anything. I am trying to, that's why I use the word business tenants. I'm trying to dial in on those specifically, but I mean, we just went under contract on a multifamily building like 2 weeks ago. So still buying everything.
Something's working for you, because I know a lot of people like, hey, I can't find deals. There's nothing available. What's working for you? You're obviously finding deals.
Yeah. So a couple I think one of the things is positioning myself as the commercial guy. Honestly, in a lot of groups like this, I've done deals with Collective Genius members. I've got multiple deals with multiple. We expanded. My portfolio started in Georgia, and now about half of it is in Georgia, half of it's across the country in select markets with other people that I know, like, and trust and want to be in business with. And so I kind of, being the commercial guy that people can send deals to and look at has been one way that we get deal flow. But the other thing we've done different direct to seller options. I think the two that work best in commercial, at least what we've seen, is cold calling and direct mail. But what we are all that shut off for us currently, what I've got my sales guys focusing on now is primarily broker relationships. What's a little bit different in commercial is those brokers are cold calling aggressively in the commercial space in a way that doesn't really exist in residential in the same way. So by the time you're talking to an owner, they've probably talked to 5 kind of junior brokers who are trying to cut their teeth and break into the business. So what I found is now that we've done deals and proven ourselves to brokers, we're getting, I think I'll pretty soon be at a point where I can do a really healthy deal flow with just broker deals that they're sending us, because they know we can perform. They have learned our buy box. They see what we're doing. And that's been great. But that's just been the last year or so.
Performance equals your marketing. It's
Mhm.
it's a better, healthier margin when you're not having to
Yeah.
spend those marketing dollars. As you've grown, what's the one position? I don't think I've ever asked this question on the pod. A year later, I don't think I've ever asked this, but this one makes sense for me because of the type of assets that you're growing. What's the next position that you don't have right now that you feel like I need to take this, to make this better?
Yeah, that is without a doubt and I don't even know what you would officially call it, but a capital raising investor relationship kind of person. I just hired another unique position that's probably more commercial only, underwriter, a couple months ago, and that has been life saving because, like I said, I'm a deal junkie. I'd spend half my week underwriting deals because of our deal flow, so that's finally coming off my plate. But the thing that's still full time on me is all the investor relationships, and I've been a heck of a lot more serious about, because when I was doing commercial and doing residential and in the hospital, I didn't have a crazy amount of time, surprise, and I would only raise capital when the deal presented itself, and that works, but that is a stressful way to maintain raising capital. And then I would, for lack of a better word, accidentally ignore those investors again, outside of, giving them updates in the property. But now we've realized we need to have a whole system of appreciating and communicating to those capital partners that includes checking in on them and how they're doing in life, not just sending them an email about how the property's doing.
I knew the answer before I even asked it. I know that because I just had a conversation yesterday with another one of our commercial guys at the CEO level, and most right now, deal flow is starting to come back on the commercial side
Yeah.
because interest rates really shut down a lot of things. And there was that 3-4 year period where things were stuck. Construction stopped because interest rates going up, and now people are either fire selling or foreclosures are happening. So inventory is starting to come. And so I asked the question specifically because this is the type of thought process. If you're making this leap, and even if you're trying to grow a single family operation, you have to it is crucial to have somebody that's working investor relationships, especially at this scale, because now that you have this relationship with brokers and you have this relationship with other investors, it's not a matter of do you need money. It is always that you're going to need money, and it's going to be soon based upon these type of relationships. And so good luck with that, because I know every other commercial person I've talked to, he said, I
know.
need a third one or I need my first one. I'm hearing that conversation. But this is a role, man. This is one that I actually did fundraising at one point in my career. I never did it full time, but it was part of my job. I absolutely loved it. And I know there's a lot of people that are in like corporate sales positions that would love these higher level conversations. And so to me, it should be an easier position to fill because it's like sales, but investor relationship sales versus trying to sell a widget, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Definitely longer term. Definitely, you got to invest the time.
Yes.
But yeah, no, you're right. It's so important. And we thought we were good at capital raising because we were doing a couple deals a year, and we, need maybe $1 million, $2 million max a year. But, doing the volume we're doing now, we're trying to raise 6, 8, 10 million a year. That's a lot more for sure. So,
and it'll be 10 to 20 years to come. So a systematic approach of continual fundraising is something that's your next thing. And in March, remind me when we're at our next meeting, there's a presentation that was done. We brought some outside people in for our CEO group, and they did a presentation on raising capital systematically, not just raising it, right? Building a system out for someone to come in and just grab and go. Blueprint.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll check it out.
Another one of those resources within the Collective Genius. We talk about this all the time. You want to be in the right rooms. You want to be around people like John, but you also, when we bring in outside speakers, it's generally for the needs of the group. And this is a good example of something that we've recorded that I can just plug and play over to you. And as soon as I don't even know where that video is, or I have how to unaccess anymore. The portal has thrown me off a little bit with that, but I know it's available.
Awesome.
Let's end with this. A couple things. Obviously, want to end with I know you've got a community now for coaching on the commercial side. But before we get there, I've asked everyone this here, and at the start of the year, 2026, going into this year, what are you most excited about?
It's one of those things that now I feel once I kind of made the switch to commercial only, like this is I feel so aligned for the first time, and it did that over the course of last year. But a big part of that, winding down a business with that many employees and all that going on, and then reestablishing new standard operating procedures I basically took my A players and then put them into an entirely new business. So kind of it's been a journey doing that. So we're kind of on the other side of that and seeing the progress there. So I'm just excited to have a whole year with a team behind me that actually knows commercial, and we've got some systems in place to just really take it to the next level and do more really good deals. So that's what I'm most excited about for this year, for sure.
Yeah, you've gotten to the other side now where you can really focus in, like when you talked to Gary back 3 years ago, and now you're at a point where you can really focus in. You can still be a deal junkie, but deal junkie to your highest and best use, which it sounds like that's why you should be excited about this year. And I'm sure in 27 you'll have something new to add to that. But of this transition that you've made with your business, because I can tell that is what you love. Like the singles are great. There's a lot of people that do it. The last couple of pods that we've had are people that just do wholesale, and they're really stinking good at it. They don't do anything else. And there's no reason for them to ever leave that because they do it at such a high level. But you can tell with certain investors, there's a greater passion for bigger things, and you're clearly one of those. I'm excited for you. I'm also excited. It sounds like you got a little one on the way, so I'm sure you're excited about that as well.
Yep, couple of weeks from now, we'll be having surprise third youngin running around, so it'll be my first one not in the hospital, so I am kind of excited to, I was working nights and not present as much as I would have wanted the first time, so I'm excited to be present.
Your other kids will be upset with you, but the new kid's going to get all of the attention.
Oh yeah.
Well, let's end with this. You have obviously a ton of experience on the commercial side, commercial, multifamily, self-storage, a little bit of dabbling in all of it, and you're now helping others learn that. Tell us a little bit more about that and how the audience can get in touch with you.
Yeah, so I do have a coaching program. The most of my clients are folks who are already familiar with the real estate space and are typically residential folks who are looking to buy that first commercial building or figure out how they can do that barbell method and keep rolling with whatever they're already good at and just supplement it by buying another building. I think what's hard about fix and flip or wholesale is if you're going to grow wealth and get the tax benefits of real estate, you have to unfortunately almost pick off your best deals that are going to make your wholesale business 60 grand, 80 grand. Well, don't take that deal away from your business. If you've made it to the point that you actually have a little bit of time, and I truly think you can do this in under 5 hours a week, spend a little bit of time talking to brokers and finding deals in your local market, you can get that first commercial building and do it with that barbell style where you're really adding to your net worth. You've got the active income coming in, so you can let that building kind of just grow in value and develop cash flow, and you'll look up a year or two later and you'll be making consistent, reliable cash flow, and your net worth will typically go up 7 figures with that building. So that's what I do. That's what I'm passionate about doing. Where you can find me is on Facebook, just John Heisler, Heisler. And then my website for that program is cre-playbook.com.
One last question now that you say that. I get this, and I think in general, communities that are in this space, a lot of people say, I can't go to that group because there's a bunch of wholesalers. Hopefully this podcast has shown people that we're super diversified when it comes to the type of investor that's in the room. Now, you only focus on commercial. You're making this transition to our premier level group. What would you say to that individual that is doing real estate? Maybe they're not doing single family, especially not wholesaling, and say, I don't want to be in a wholesaling group like the Collective Genius.
Oh man, there's so many positives about being Collective Genius that are so far removed. You're right that when you're kind of in that, you've got a problem in your business, you're looking for the tactical thing that will fix it. You're looking for that new marketing secret that's going to be the difference, and you're just not realizing that's not the difference. The difference is you as a leader, which CG is phenomenal at teaching that. My level of leadership ability has skyrocketed since being in CG. Operationally, we had nothing when we first got into CG. So operationally, our business is running at such a higher level because of CG. And then, of course, the network. Some of my best real estate friends come from CG. Anytime I run into any trouble in the business, I've got people I can pick up the phone that are going to help me through it for absolutely nothing other than they want to see me succeed. And the same thing, I've got people that call me, got an issue going on, and I help them too. So it's just an awesome community to be in. And, yes, there's more single family focused, but tons of value that I've received even as more of a commercial guy.
I love that. Thank you for that. And I'll just wrap it up by saying the deals that you've done with trusted entrepreneurs in other markets doesn't happen if you're not in that room. Like, I think the secret sauce of anybody that does both single family and commercial, and maybe even like you that make that transition only to commercial, is the relationships of how many people, like I was mentioning earlier, all the people that I've, the last 3 or 4 guests have only done wholesale. They don't want to do commercial. So guess who those leads either go to or you joint venture with. So maybe you should be saying stay out of CG.
Send me all your deals. We'll partner on them. Absolutely. I would love that.
John, this has been a blast. I know you've got kids coming here soon, so we're going to let you out on that. What's that website one last time? So if people want to learn more about your program.
Yeah, CRE-playbook.com.
Fantastic, John. Thank you so much for being a guest here today on the Collective Genius podcast. This has been a great one. We could go on for hours, but I would like to have you back because I think there's an opportunity to share one of those playbooks with the guest, and we can discuss that in due time. But I do think there's an opportunity there for that investor that wants to make that transition, at least add commercial to that barbell, as you were mentioning earlier. So thanks again for being a guest on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Leon. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. So if you would love to be in a room with guests, with members like John, the easiest way to do that is to go to our website. Our website is explorecg.com. There you'll find all the information that you need on the different tiers. John just went from our select group to our premier group. I think we're at 50 plus now in 5 years that have made that transition. That warms my heart to know that we have members growing their businesses, just like you said before, John, that are coming in, learning that it's not a marketing problem. It's a systems, it's a people, it's a process, an operations issue, typically more so than it is all these other little things. So that website, find more, is explorecg.com. Again, John, thank you for being my guest today. Thank you for listening to the Collective Genius podcast, and we will see you again next week.
New episodes every week. To learn more, visit explorecg.com, where real estate investors come to scale.